I want to introduce you to something that I made, and I've been excited about teaching you how to make it because it's so simple. And one of the neat things about it is you get to weave a seat in the process too. To make this stool, the basic stool, all you need is this little cluster of tools here. I've got a ruler, a pencil down there, square, boring brace, chisel, and a hammer and a saw. Now, if you want to end it with just square legs, those are the only tools you need. If you want the shaping and this elegant element adding to it, you need a spoke shave and you need a rasp and a file, and that will get you this whole stool together for the frame. After that, it's the weaving of the seat, and I'm going to walk you through that too. So how do we go about this? I want to show you what this is. It's an incredible joint. You may not know it because I've never seen anybody use this, and you might think this is just a fox wedging, but what it is really is I actually opened up the bottom of the hole on each side to accommodate a wedge. And that means that when I drove this broom handle, that's all these were, drove the broom handle into the hole with a wedge in it, it had room to expand. So I've got a dovetailed end to my rail, and that works perfectly to hold that in place for the rest of its life. So that's what we're going to do. I'm excited about this because it's simple, and it's something you can do with your family. You can do it on your own. You can go in the garage, and all you need is a handful of tools. This is great for you to learn how to make this stool, but you can also make this into a table. You could make it into a variety of other projects too. So it's up to you. It's very robust. It's very strong enough to take my weight and another person's weight of the same weight. So it's a great stool, great project to get going on. And ideally, it's a good first project for some people starting out in woodworking. I want to walk you through how to make a simple stool using dowels and 4 square legs. We're going to shape them, we're going to add some features to it, but this is primarily to hold the weaving of what we call Danish cord, which is brown paper in a twist, and we're going to finish off with a woven seat using that twisted paper. So this is to get you something to start on, something to work on, and I've kept this as simple as I possibly can. So let me walk you through how I got here. So I've got my 4 legs, and I've got 8 rails, 4 long and 4 short, because I'm going to make a rectangular stool. You can make it square and you can make it longer and shorter according to your wishes, but I'm going to show you how to make this one, and it's up to you. So these rails will go in between bored holes, and if anybody is like me, it's not always easy to bore a dead square hole. And that's what we're looking for, something that is as square as possible. So I've picked my orientation for my legs that go on the outside, and to set this in stone, I've put a VA triangle on there. So that tells me that all those faces with the mark going to that inside face are the faces that the doweled holes are going to go into. So first of all, I'm going to lay one of these out, put these aside, and where I have this mark, where it comes onto this face and this face, these are the 2 faces that are going to take the bored holes. So we're going to have a top rail and we're going to have a lower bottom rail. There'll be 6 inches in between those 2 rails. So I happen to have a 3/4 inch square, and my dowel is 3/4 of an inch. You might not have a 3/4 of an inch. You might not have beech like I have. It doesn't have to be beech. In fact, pine works extremely well. So what I want my dowel to start, I want it to start 5/8 down from that top edge. That's my 5/8 point there. So if I make a mark, first of all there, and then I can take the blade of my square and go across. This is purely for giving you a visual that we're looking at. So let's take those marks all the way across. Now normally I would transfer these marks to the face of the other legs. At this moment I'm going for this, and it's going to work fine. So now then, lower down, I want 6 inches in between, so let me go ahead and do that as well. I'll switch squares because I can use this. This is 6 inches long, so I set that. There's my 6 inches and 6 inches. Back to this square for my 3/4 inch, but you can simply measure it if you don't have that 3/4 inch. And because this is square stock, so it's 1 3/4 by 1 3/4, 14 inches long. So that's the length of the legs. My rails are 11.5 long. Those are the long ones, and the shorter ones are 9.5 inches. And these are going to go in 3/4 of an inch. So that's going to make the distance between the rails 11 inches and 8 inches. Okay, so we are going to bore holes. Now, I don't want the holes in the center. I want to come 3/4 because I don't want these to meet part way. So I come in from the outside faces 1/4 of an inch like this. Now I'm guesstimating this, but by the time I get to this, I'm going to be exact. So that's going to be the position of my hole, and I'm going to put some holes on here just to show you, not really for my benefit. So there's one hole. So this is a 3/4 inch diameter. I'm coming in from that outside face, like I said, 3/4. And this distance here is 3/4, and that's given me the governance that I needed to get the depth that I wanted. 3/4 of an inch is going to be plenty long enough because of a little trick that I'm going to do on here when I've finished. So to get the center for that, I've got 3/8 and 1/4 of an inch. So if I take my square and set this to 5/8, that will then give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That will give me the center of the hole that I want to bore. So if I come up here with a pencil line, from the outside face again, pencil line, and then I cross that over. So if I took my square and set this to 3/8 of an inch, or 1 inch actually down from the top, I've got the crosshair that I want. Let me bring that over onto this face. And this is my layout for my boring holes. And I can transfer these marks to the adjacent legs, which is usually what we do. I think I'm slightly off there. There we go. So I've got my position for my holes. I want to bore exactly 3/4 of an inch deep. So I'm just going to use this brad awl, or the awl, this is a square awl actually, just to get the start for my hole on each one. I find that more accurate than just going with the brace and bit. Now I'm going to use a brace and bit, which I just happen to have a 3/4 inch brace. You might be using something like this, and you might be using this in a drill driver. So what you're going to have to be careful of is, because we're boring so near to the end of the wood, and even with a brace and bit, I still have something of a similar problem. The snail that's going in can split this wood. So I've got two things that I'm going to tell you to do. A little trick of the trade, if you like. I'm going to take a bit, and this bit is going to not only give me a hole that's going to take the snail of the bit. So I'm going to bore in here that 3/4 inch deep, like that. Set this out of the way. And what that does, it takes the stress off this type of bit. So when you start boring, just make sure it's big enough, but it won't split the wood. If you go with that, it will split the wood. So the other, I didn't do it on the lower ones because we've got this massive wood and it's not going to split that wood. So let's go here now. What I want to do, what I have already done, is I've marked, and it's gone off, I want to mark the depth of my cut. And the depth of cut is going to be to this part here. That's the raker that's going to be the bottom of the hole. So I want a 3/4 inch depth. This particular square is 3/4 inch. So I'm going to use a marker. And I want this to be exact. So there's my depth. And that'll be enough to bore all the holes without wearing off, I hope. Now, boring something square is not that easy because you go one way or the other. When I'm boring this way, I don't usually have a problem standing dead center because I've got these two eyes that put me in the middle. It's like a triangle. But up and down, I can't see the side. So what I'm going to suggest you do is make one of these. It's just a piece of plywood where I have checked the end for square, and then I've taken anything an inch from the end, an inch from the end, and cut that with a handsaw, with whatever method you want, and you end up with something like this. And this will give you enough support or guidance. So if I put this on the line there, something like that, hopefully there's the right distance, and this is where it gets a little tricky for the camera to see. But I line this up, and the reason I've done this is this long axis gives me a better guide for whether I'm square or not. So I've gone right into that start hole. Now there's something else I want to add in here, another safety feature. If you take a clamp like this and clamp this on either side of your piece of wood like this, can I go? Yeah, I'll go there. That's going to stop it from splitting. So I've done a double take on this. That's going to stop any splittage. Now I start here and I'm going to count until I get to that black line, and then I'm going to use that in future for my rotation. So now my teeth, the side spurs on my bit are just scoring the surface, so I count from here. Now I lift up or drop down according to this L shape. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I've got to 11 and I'm right on my black line. Now I'm going to check myself, because if I've gone past, I might have failed myself. So there's my 3/4 inch hole, and I am about a 64th over. So I'm happy with that. That's going to be perfect. As long as I do them all the same, they're going to be exactly how I want them to be. I do the same on this next one, the adjacent one, again on the outside edge, like that. Let me go ahead and clamp that one off. So you can see how this is working to make a square. Why am I so obsessed about being square? Because when we come to put the dowels in, we don't want to be out 3 or 4 degrees one way or the other, because we might not be able to correct that. So there I am, I'm in the hole, I've got my L shape to guide me, lift up or down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, stop, back out. So we have already got those holes bored, and they're just about, I can just see the corner of the bit right inside, but I'm not worried about that, because when I put those dowels in, it's not going to make a drop of difference. Okay, we'll do the next one. Again, we'll do this way, exactly the same way. Very boring, I know, but here we go. So it's just the teeth, the points, the spurs are just biting the surface now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I can just barely see that black mark disappearing. So I'm bang on. These are all going to be exactly the same depth. And that's how now you're going to have to count yours, because your spur is what controls this. You might not realize that. The threads on the spur of your drill bit, might be different to mine. So you do a practice on a piece of wood. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Hesitation. So that's exactly what we're going to do to the other pieces. Now these will go in like that. I'm square, I'm perfectly happy. That one looks great. How does this one look? That looks great. So we've already got our joinery done on one of the legs. Now I've got the wrong dowels in here, but you can see what we're going to end up with. And when I show you the next trick of the trade, you'll wonder how you've gone through life without knowing this, probably. Okay, the last thing I want to do on this is, now I've got those board and I've got these lines, I can transfer these lines from this one to make sure everything is identical. And what we're going to do next, I want to show you how to shape this leg, because I don't want this clunkiness. So I'm going to walk you through a system that I've worked on for a long time, and that's going to be how to shape the leg and make it look a little bit more gentle, a little bit more elegant, a little bit more delicate. I don't know about you, but when I stood the legs in place, they felt quite clunky. So what I'm going to show you is how I shaped a leg like this one here. You can see I've got these in place just to show their relationship to the leg. This is the outside corner. The other rails will be going across towards me at the back. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some shaping, and it's not complicated. It might seem complicated. So the first thing I want to do is find out which one is the outside corner. This is the outside corner. This is the top of the leg. It's very easy to do this the wrong way. So 1/4 of an inch in from the edge, set your finger as a gauge, run it off all the way to the end, and do the same on the adjacent face. That's going to give you 2 points to work to with your spoke shave. So these holes are at the top. So I'm coming up from the bottom 1 inch. So this ruler is 1 inch wide. So I want to put a bevel on here. It's called a chamfer, but this one in particular is called a stopped chamfer. So in the middle of learning about how to make a stool that you can weave, we're also going to add in some other joinery and woodworking features that will help you to get going. So I've got my spoke shave and it's ready to go already. I've set it hard on one side, so it's a heavier set on this side than this side. In other words, the blade is not set parallel to the sole of the spoke shave. Starting near that 1 inch mark, take long strokes all the way through, and that will, in some measure, give you an equal bevel chamfer as you work through. And this is how we would make a stopped chamfer on a piece of furniture if we were going to make such a thing. So I keep going until I see those two lines basically split in two. So I've got that chamfer done already. So I left my line in on each side, perfect. Now what I want to show you is, on this, I've got a shape on the back of the leg, and we have to make sure we do everything. So this is where I would draw a line round. How did I get this template? What I did is I came up an inch. Oh no, sorry. I came in an inch. So this is the front corner, and I'm coming up 5 inches. I've got all these measurements rolling around in my head. I'm going to put this in the vise this way, and if I allow it to curve, it's bold up here and it's curved down there, I'll have enough pressure to press this against my belly and flex it to that 1 inch mark and the 5 inch mark. And that's given me a mark that I can work to. So if I take a knife now and pull that down from that 5 inch mark and follow that line, that pencil line around like that, I can snap to the line pretty much all the way. I'm going to put it in the vise. There's a little nub on there that I'm going to pull off with my knife, I think, like that. And then I'm going to go back to my spoke shave and fair out that angle just a little bit, so I get a nice continuous curve. Feel it with the edges of your fingers, and now we've got the shape that we want for that back part of the leg. So flush with the bottom, flush with the front edge. You can see how this goes. I'm going to say leave that at that, because we're going to do another one in a minute, but I'm going to pull a line across there, and I might put the same line on the other side just for a reference to work to, because it gives you a clear distinction of where to start and stop. What we're going to do next, put a couple of saw cuts in there, going across the grain. These are what we call stop cuts. So you're going to stop about 1/16 of an inch or 2 mil above the line. And we can use these stop cuts to split the wood tube. I'm going with a wide chisel now. I'm going to lay it down on the surface so that the whole blade is in contact with the surface of the wood. And then I'm going to elevate until it starts to cut. And now I watch myself to see which way the grain is going. It's in my favor. I come to this side and do the same. And if you've never done this, it is enjoyable. It's very, very much a fun thing to do. But you have to make sure you don't allow the chisel to cant over too much in one direction or another. I'm going to go with jab cuts now, like this, because I think I prefer it. So I'm getting near to that line now. But I want to take the bulk of it off with the chisel, just because it gets closer to where I want to be faster. Now I'm going to go with my spoke shave. Now I could use an ordinary plane now. I'm going with the spoke shave, working to that line. I've got the shape I want. I'm going to switch to a plane. If you've got a number 4 plane, do so. If you don't, just go with your spoke shave. So I'm following that arc. That's giving me a very nice smooth surface. Can you see how this is coming? Now I'm going to do the same on this adjacent face here. Same again with the pencil. I'm going to go on the opposite side because my plastic will flex. So now I've got absolute accuracy and I'm in full control of my material. Back to my, what's that? Now I've got a knot in here. How to deal with that? Just put your saw curves closer together. If it breaks, it breaks. There's nothing I or you can do about it. Okay, we're going to give it a shot, do it our best. So we're going very carefully now because of the knot, because the wood around the knot can dip and dive. I'm going bevel down Can you see how the grain is showing me which direction it's going to split? It's splitting upwards or level on that side, but this side it's not. So I'm going to change my direction and the section I'm working on. I missed the knot. So I'm down near to my line there. What am I going to do here? Let's take a look, see what happens. Not easy with this kind of knot. Let's see here. We're good. So I've approached it very judiciously, but very rarely will I pretend to my audience. Now here, I'm going to try here and see what direction that grain is going to go. Again, I'm going cautiously, and that really helped me. So I could go now with the spoke shave at an angle like this. I want to keep as much of the wood as I can, and we're going to be putting another bevel on there in a minute, so I believe this is going to work very well for me, but only because I approached it with caution. Am I down to my line? Not yet. It's coming. As well as I could expect. So here we go with the plane again. So I just throw the plane at it and try and follow the arc like that. Whew. A little bit of a challenge there, but not too much. What we're going to do next is on the inside face, I'm going to take the same template and I'm going to come in 1/4 of an inch from the corner, or roughly 1/4 of an inch from the corner. This is the inside corner, remember? And then I flip it side for side and I do the same on this end. So you can see on this face how I'm going. So I'm going to bevel this as well. This is interesting. This is so fascinating. I'm sure you're enjoying it. So we start up here, this top end, and work down at 45 degrees roughly. Don't get your square out to check yourself, because it doesn't really matter. You can only see one of these faces at one time, because that's going to be on the underside or the inside of the table. We're going to take this one now. That little squeak was Rosie. She's sitting on one of my chairs here. We're going to do the same again. 1/4 of an inch in. And then on this one, what were we going to do? We're going to come in 1/4 of an inch and just flex this, this template to what you think will work. That's about as close as I think it's going to get. And you'll get to a point where you won't need this. This time, I'm going to go with a chisel because the grain is in my favor. So I can go all in one pass. I took all that chamfer off really in one pass, the bulk of it, and now I'm just refining it. So back to my plane. Just work it round. Nice and even, so you've got a flat on there. Now you can see how this is coming together. I'm going to do the same on this face. So this is the outside front face, or whatever, side face maybe. And I just pull this like that, flip over, and do the same on this side. 1/4 of an inch in, roughly. And that's going to take out some of that divot from the... Now this time I don't think I can go with the chisel. I'm just going to go with the spoke shave. And that's the bulk of the the chamfering is done. All the chamfering is done. I'm happy with the way it's come out. What I'm going to do next is I want to come on this bottom. I want this foot to look as though it's coming up like this and up like this. So you watch me and tell me if you don't like this. I'm going to go with a rasp. This is called a saw rasp. So I'm going with the fine side. And I just push up like this and work round. And then I'm working round onto this edge and round onto this edge. And I'm going to go with a flat file now and make a nice sweeping round onto that corner. Turn over. I can do a couple of these corners on the back here. I just go with the rasp, one pass, and one pass. And now I go with the file, one pass on each, or two possibly, and that's giving me a bevel to the underside of the leg. And that will stop those fibres from tearing when it's pulled across the floor or whatever. Malevolence comes against this stool. So there we have it. That's my shaping done. I've got 3 more to do, but that's going to be the basic shaping for the leg length. I'm going to come down from the top 3/16, use my finger just as a guide, like that, all the way around onto the 4 sides. And we're going to go with the rasp, the saw rasp now, and we're going to take off about 45 degrees to that line. Now this rasp is a little too aggressive to come lower down, but I'm going to switch to the file in a minute. I'm aiming to split that angle. I was at 45, and now I'm lifting up onto the top. And now I'm arcing the rasp until I get somewhere near the middle of that top of the leg, the top face of the leg. Once I've done that, I go with the regular file, or just a 10-inch flat file, and I work this like this. This corner is still too sharp. It's going to be where your legs are going. So I'm going to just come up from here and round it. What is it, Rosie? You're fine. Okay. And the same on the adjacent face, same on the adjacent face, until we've gone all the way around here. So this is the basic shaping. It's optional, you don't have to do this, but it's going to give you just a little bit more to practice your woodworking skills on with a real purpose. It's going to train you or whatever, or you're just going to end up with a nicely shaped stool. Back to my file, up and over, continuous sweep, and those annual rings, those growth rings, are going to start shimmering and smiling back at you as you work that corner. So we've got 3 more legs to do, or 2 more I have to do. I've already done one. So here we go. All the way over to just past the middle with this fellow, with this rasp, and then refine it with the flat file. Now we've got an additional corner right on that front outer corner to do this one here. So we come at 45 and round it over into the top. 1 more left to do. And then we do the other legs, and we're ready to glue up after some sanding and some refinement. The one thing about using the pine is it is easy to work, and it's more than adequate for a lifetime tool. This stool will last for 100 years without any problem at all. So you don't need hardwoods to do this in. You sound like my file. So here, up onto the top, all the way over, and just refine your strokes. Make sure you don't leave any of the big teeth marks in. And look at that. We have got a nicely shaped leg, and we can take some abrasive paper. I don't have any here because I use it so minimally. Take some sandpaper and start sanding. Do the other three and we're ready to glue up. I've paired up my pieces and I have got my rails ready to go in. So I'm doing the long rails first. So I'm going to put them, start assembling, putting it together this way. But there's something I want to show you inside the hole. And I'm going to try and show you on this one first, because I'm going to expand the top and bottom of the hole inside the rim. So I'm taking a 1/4 inch chisel and placing it about 1/4 inch down in the hole. The edge of my chisel is on the center of the hole and I'm pushing down in. So in other words, the far end of this hole will help me to develop a dovetail on the end of my tenons. So I'm right on the inside rim and I'm doing it on the two sides, the top and bottom of this hole, but on the top hole, I'm only doing it on the bottom because I don't want the top to expand, because I don't want to bust out that top end of the hole. So that's done. Clean out the hole, make sure there's no debris at the bottom of the hole because you don't want anything to stop the seating of these rails going in there. So same on this one, on the bottom of the hole for the top one. So it's just really kind of an undercut really, and it's just giving a space for the wood to expand. Now the top of the seat, you'll probably gather, will be very much harnessed by the wood, by the Danish cord, because that's going to be wrapped around 100 times or however many times that is. So we're doing that on that one. We'll do the same on the adjacent two. We'll be doing it on all of them. So now we get to the point where we start to think about putting the saw kerf in. You can see this is quite loose, even though they're both supposedly 19 millimeters. If I put my piece of wood in there, I'll know where to drill, where to saw kerf to. This one probably won't turn. And now this is just slightly oversized, so I'll just take my finger, go about 5/8 of an inch. I'll stop shy on those others that are 3/4 deep. But I'm gonna go saw kerf down those. So you can saw kerf down any direction you want, but you want these to be fairly near to being opposite. So I'm going on the center of the dowel. And I'm sawing down. In this case, the 5/8 depth is great. In this side, well, this one will be as well. Now I want to go exactly the same direction, or as near as I can, the same direction as the saw kerf I did at the other side, because I want these to expand into the long axis of the leg. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So if this one is going to be a bottom rail, I want this kerf to go perpendicular to the grain of the leg. So this one we're going to cut shy of that line. Try and get it centered if you can. Now this is going to register straight off. When this goes in the hole, the top of the rail is going to register against the top of the hole, but the bottom expands away from the top of the leg. And when we drive the wedge, so I'm stopping about 1/8 of an inch from the depth of that. So this goes the same as the other one, making sure that the kerf is going 90 degrees to the length of the leg. So now we're ready to start putting this together. What we need is some wedges. So I've got a piece of, this is slightly thinner than my material. I don't want it to be the same width. I'm going slightly thinner because I don't want anything to hold this up. I'm going with a smaller dovetail saw. I'm starting right on the corner. And whatever angle you choose to go at is up to you. I can't give you that angle. There's my first wedge or my second wedge. So that's 3 wedges. And that's 4. So I would go all the way across usually and do the 12 wedges. Is that what I need? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 wedges. So cut a couple square ready for your glue up. And I want to show you on one of these sticks, maybe this one is a very short piece. It might split when I go in here, but we'll see. A little bit more than that. So my saw kerf on the previous one was slightly bigger. Let me go in with this one. So when I put the wedge, one of these wedges in here, it's going to expand this. So if I just pop this without driving it, I need my hammer. Just like that, just until it's tight. And then I take a vernier and measure it. This should be 19 something. So I've got 1937 is the diameter. If I drive this just gently, like that, that should have gone up. So it's gone up to 1946, so 19.5 millimeters. So it doesn't take much. I don't want to leave too much on here so that when I pound it in, but if I drive this all the way now, it'll probably split. Yeah, because there's nothing constraining it, but on the whole, that won't be the problem. So what I want to do now is take these, offer them into the hole, into the kerf, to give them a gentle tap. Now it has a place for it to expand to, and this should be constrained by the hole. But what I want to do is cut some of this wedge off because I don't want it to be too long. I found success with about 1/4 of an inch protruding. So I'm going to go with my gut instinct. I don't have much holding on to that wedge there. That's one done. So I'm going to go with all 4 of them. I'm going to give them a gentle tap, and then I'm going to cross cut them. A finer saw probably would work better than this one. So just the weight of your hand will do it. Now that wedge just split on me as I put it down, but I'm still going to use it. It won't make any difference. Last one. Everything's splitting on me now. What I'm going to do is put it in the vise here, and then saw horizontally. That will squeeze on that wedge. Will it? No, it won't. Okay, we'll try something else. Another tack here is going to be with a wide chisel. That was great. Love it. Always a solution. That's the important thing. That's what my dad always told me. Be a solution. I'm going to saw this one shorter so that we're ready to go. Okay. Now what's going to happen with these wedges, when we drive them in, hopefully they're going to spread You don't need a whole lot of glue. And of course, as I said, the top rails are going to be held by the binding from the weaving. I'm going to put, let's see, which one did I do? Yeah, I did that one. So I'm going to put glue in the hole as well, but I don't want to put too much in. Just a little bead round the top edge, and then I can spread it with my finger. Okay, this is ready to go. Put my wedge in. This one's already tight. Do you remember I already tried it in the hole and it was quite tight? So remember, it's going across the grain of the leg. And I start driving this now. I've got a line. You'll hear it seat. That's seated nicely. Now I want you to check yourself for square to see how it is, because you can still tweak this. If this is slightly out of square, you can hit it somewhere along there and it will bring it square. So we want these to be relatively square to the leg and the rail. All of it really needs to be square if it's within our power to do that, which it is. So there is my next one. Remember, this one was only spreading towards the bottom. That's the theory of it. I don't even know if all of that is the case. So top rail in. Keep it perpendicular. Make sure the wedge is square before you start. And that's that one. That's square. So we got to do two at once this time. I've got a wedge that broke on me there. Great. You've got to get these right, otherwise you'll have one going out, one going in. So I've sanded my sticks, my legs. Everything is ready to go. I'm going to put the glue on my finger. It's up to you if you want to do that or not. Just to get it round. The top one, it doesn't matter if the glue is visible after. This bottom one does, because it will show. But you can leave it to go leather hard and just go in with a chisel and trim it off when it's semi-dry or virtually dry. Here we go. Now we've got to get these in, and we've got to make sure that the wedges are upright and make sure that we're oriented correctly. I'm going to bring in a piece of wood because it might take a little bit more pounding. And I'm pounding on a good leg, not the end of the tenon this time, or the end of the rail. So I'm going in, bench clean. Down, that one. And that one's down. So what we're going to do now is we want to sight from one side to the other to make sure we're not twisted, because we can twist this and we can take out any twist at this stage. So that's that. We're going to check to make sure the shoulders are indeed 11 inches and 11 inches. I'm dead on my 11-inch mark. So that's that. So I do the opposite side now, and then I do my side rails, and they all go together the same way. I stretched these lengths off the main coil because it's easier in a shorter coil. And you'll see my one arm stretch is 3 feet. So I've stretched 10 times, somewhere around 9, 10 times. I dropped this in the bucket because that's what I was advised to do with one supplier, and then I shake it off. In the end, I switched to not dropping them all in the bucket. Here I'm using a cable stapler. I just happen to have a cable stapler and own one, and I'm cinching this tight with the hammer. And there I've got 2 staplers. So you can use a regular stapler if it hits. That one didn't hit very well. But you can drive those home. That one I couldn't see actually at the time, so it went underneath. But however you attach it, you can actually use carpet tacks as well, those broad-headed tacks. And we start weaving the seat by passing the cable inside, up and over the opposite rail, back through, over the top of the cable, underneath, over to the opposite side, and back through again. So we go up, over and round, and then we toss the cable to the side, the coil, and we start tightening, and we pull it tight, starting from the cable that's anchored and moving all the way around. So I'm going over the top, back underneath, and bringing it up around the corner. I pull it fairly tight when I go around the corner, but not too tight, because that will cause the cable to flatten on the rail, and it extends the width of each wrap you go with. So you do have to be careful. You want to stretch it along across from the rail to rail, but not round the corners too much. Now you're going around these corners with the wrap and you start feeding it and you're working with it the whole time. You're kind of molding it to the adjacent piece that you just did. You tighten up as you go, pull it tight. Can you see I've gone under the coil there, and you'll see me go under the coils after I've gone around the corner, or as I'm going around the corner, under the cable, back over the top of the cable. It's not all obvious. Now you can see I've pulled that bottom cable from the previous wrap up, and that's what keeps the cable parallel as we work around with the coil. So I'm pulling with my left hand there, wrapping it around, pinching it tight, and then taking it round the corner. Can you see I'm turning the coil? Sometimes the coil comes undone and it comes loose, and you have to kind of twist it as you go just to keep that surface tension on the coils. Here I'm using a spring clip to hold it because I've gone all the way around 4 times, 5 times, and that's the extent of that length of wrap. So now I have to join another piece. I'm using a block of wood with the hammer to hammer it tight, and it's surprising how much gain you get from that. You could gain as much as 1/4 of an inch by doing this. So you tap and wrap, and that's what we do all the way around through every level. We keep working around like that. So I'm tightening everything up because that means I can pull it tight before I attach my next piece of cord to this one. So I'm peeling off another 10 yards. So I just count as I go. Let it fall on the floor and it will go back to its coil. I'm dipping it in the bucket like I said before, but I eventually decided not to do this, and it's going to be up to you. The problem is you have to practice, and that can be expensive on a full coil. But I didn't find wetting the whole coil to be any better than the next element to it, which is just to spray water onto the wrap as you go on the actual wrap on the rails. So here I go again, I'm doing a full wrap, so I go all the way around and I'm twisting the coil as I go because the coil does tend to come undone and then it becomes loose. I've gone to a certain point, and this is about half the number of wraps that I'll actually do. And then when you get to a certain point, like I am now at this point, you start to cut some strips of corrugated cardboard and shape them to the miters in the corners. So here I'm just using a Sharpie to get a rough 45 degrees, cut it off. And this is going to be packing that goes in between the two layers, the underside and the top side of the weave, of the cord. So you push it in one side, bend it and push it into the other side, pull it into place. And I found that 2 pieces was enough in this particular stool. So 2 layers of thin corrugated cardboard worked great. And you put that in each length on to each rail. You just work this corrugated cardboard to get it into the 2 ends, and everything from now on will go over the top of that cardboard. And as you wrap, you'll feel it solidify. It packs up somehow when we actually pull the cord and tighten it and everything. It's very nice. It makes it feel really good. So I'm going round with my cord. Eventually, the opening will get too small, and I'll have to go with either a smaller wrap, or I'll individually feed the cord through and pull the whole length through as I go. So we get to a certain point where we don't have the 4 sides to go, because my stool is longer than the other way, so it's a rectangle. So that last bit is pulling the cord through in a figure of 8, tightening them up as I go, and then cinching the last one tight and tying it off underneath. You know, when you're starting a new project and you get excited about it, I got very excited about this one, because a small project like this can be done probably in a day, and maybe a day and a half with the seat weaving. But I used a piece of ordinary lumber from the timber store, square section, and I used 2 broom handles that cost me £6 for the 2. And I made the rails, I made the joinery, and I wanted something that was really exciting for anybody to get started with. Cluster of hand tools, not very many, and you're on your way. Ordinary everyday hand tools, in fact, not anything special. And this would be a great first project for anybody to start with.